you for showing an interest. Thank you for showing an interest in your crew to make sure you understand all the positions that's taking place. What's going to happen tonight is Brian's going to lead the discussion. Brian has two special guest speakers that he's going to incorporate into the talk. Anything that Brian gives you tonight, mechanic-wise, has been cleared by Dave Blair, the state rules interpreter. So once Brian talks to you about it, then there's going to be some changes with the deep guys, okay, based upon punts and how you're going to view punts now. When Brian talks about what the changes are, they will be incorporated into the new six-man mechanics. It'll be released by the state. So there's no need to question Brian, about, hey, did the NFH release this? It's a state adoption. It's a state adopted six-man mechanics that Brian and Dave Blair have been working on. So anything that Brian says tonight will be instituted as we start this coming season across the state of Pennsylvania. Last thing I want to do before I turn it over to Brian is I definitely want to thank Brian and Tim for spearheading this, and all the people that Brian had that he brought on to help with the conversations. Basically, the fantastic job Sunday night, fantastic job Monday night, great job last night. So without further ado, I'll stay in the background here, Brian. Again, thank you all for attending. If you have any questions, I'm sure Brian will answer them to you, give the questions to Brian, and he'll answer them for you as best he can, or he's got special people that maybe answer them for you. But again, great job, Brian and Tim, and it's all yours, Brian. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Nick. And as you can tell, my voice has been going this is like the fourth night in a row talking. That's why I'm honored, and we're really lucky to have two people, Frank Sterator and George Liotis, to join us. They're two of the best deep officials in the country. Between the two of them, I personally have learned a lot from them. So they're the experts with field judge and side judge mechanics. And that's why I wanted to ask them, and they were gracious enough to donate, an hour and a half of their time that could go on here. So I really appreciate it. And like Nick said earlier, we're going to go through and you're going to see some changes. Okay. And we all we're human beings and we're change averse. Okay. But these changes aren't for the sake of changes. They're because of watching film, seeing holes in our six-man mechanics, and trying to get the best coverage on the plays so that we as a crew is best able to officiate each and every play. So I think, so what we're going to do is I'm going to go through the PowerPoint slides. If you were on any of the earlier ones, it's going to follow the same format, and then we're going to show some plays. But instead of listening to me drone on and talk for an hour, I'm going to read the mechanics, and then I'm going to ask Frank and I'm going to ask George to explain, why are we going to line up in this situation and how is it a benefit to us in those. So it's really, we're really lucky to have them on. So let me see if I can figure out how to share my screen and get this going. So everyone see my screen? Hopefully we good?
Yes.
All right, good. So we're going to start with scrimmage plays, and the first thing you'll notice in the header is scrimmage plays outside of the 7-yard line. Okay, so the first change you're going to notice is we are not going to go to the back pylon on the hash. We're going to do it now starting at the 7-yard line. In years past, we did it at the 5-yard line. Okay, so that's the first thing we're going to have to do a little bit adjusting, and that's where you work with your line of scrimmage official to make sure that you're both on the same page here, and that's something you can get on the 020 and tell your line of scrimmage official it's your goal line, or it's my goal line, my goal line, my spot to the 2. So to start out on all of this, when we're outside of the 7, from the 7 to the 7, our heels are going to be at the back of the white when the ball is snapped outside of the 25-yard line. Frankie, can you explain why that's important to be deep and at the back of the white and not have our toes on the white?
Yeah. So for a couple of reasons. Number one,
is depth is our friend. So the wider we can get and get as much of that white that we can get, it's going to open up some angles if we were standing right on the sideline. Okay. It will also allow us to stay more stationary throughout the play and not have to worry about backing up and all that stuff. The other reason why I like starting at the white is that we want to keep all the players and the coaches on the sideline behind us. And if we start, they always have a tendency to creep up. And that just helps us with keeping our sideline control a little bit. I know that's not the major reason why we do this. The main reason is why we want to get as deep as we can so we can open up some angles while we're staying as stationary as we can.
Okay. Now, when you line up, Frank, do you line up at a 45-degree angle? How do you do you start the back pedal? Do you shuffle? How do you work whenever you do that progression, read pass, and your keys coming downfield at you?
Yeah, so like Brian mentioned earlier, we're changing. Okay, so the whole philosophy of how we mechanically adjust to plays has changed a lot recently at all levels. So I would say that we start with a good 25 yards off the ball. Okay, and we are being taught that we do not want to backpedal immediately and quote unquote bail out at the play. So we already have a good depth. I do sort of put my belt buckle towards the quarterback. Okay, so I sort of do out of habit. I started about a 45. Okay, and that just allows me the opportunity to open up a little bit easier. And if I need to open up and turn and run on a deep pass, I can definitely do that. And it just allows me to get my vision basically at the area that I need to cover. So to answer Brian's question, is we do want to get better at reading plays, and we don't want to back pedal immediately to snap. When I first started, that was the mechanic years ago, where hey, at the snap we would take 1 or 2 steps back and then read the play. So now I would recommend that we stay stationary and challenge yourselves in scrimmages or junior high games, JV games, where you could count how many times you don't even move at all because the play all happens in front of you, and rarely does it get behind you. And we don't want to let it get behind us. So we do want to keep our cushion as deep wings, but those are going to be the dig routes and the deep routes that we are going to hopefully get better at recognizing route recognition and picking up what the receiver is doing and what type of play is happening. So in short, I would say, yeah, I do angle in myself. I like that. And no, don't bail out at the play. Stay as stationary as you can throughout the play, but always be cognizant and don't let that deep receiver get behind you if he is running a route deep.
Okay. And when you're outside and one of the things that have happened with COVID is they've expanded the players box down to the 10-yard line. However, the coaches box, I think, still only goes to the 20. When you get into an area where you're outside the coaches box, you get even more width almost to the media line, right? You just take that little bit more space to help with your angle, right?
Yeah, well, the only time that I'm going to go wider than the white would be as if I start on the goal line. So if my initial position is going to be at the goal line, and I see Brian's mechanic is the 25 and in, we will start at the goal line. At that position there, I would start at what we call the media line or the limit line, which is about 2 or 3 yards back off of that. And again, for the same reasons, when that ball or that ball carrier comes at you and diving at the pylon, you're going to be in a stationary position. You don't have to move, and you're going to be able to focus that much better on the action that's going to occur right in front of you. The other reason why we want to stay wide in that situation is that, it's tough as deep wings. One of our most challenging spots on the field, and George, you probably allude to this, is when we do start on the goal line and we have that pass that occurs 1 or 2, 3 yards into the end zone, or 1 or 2 yards in the field of play. And, we for lack of better terms, we do get stacked a little bit or straight lined a little bit due to not being able to keep our depth and not being able to get a good angle. So the wider you can be at that spot, the more at the goal line, the better we're going to give our chances of being successful on a ruling in that situation. So, you know, these are just mechanic situations. There are suggestions. And, you know, it's so important that a young official or any official, I mean, has solid mechanics, because all what we're doing with mechanics is going to increase our chances of getting the play correct. Okay. So if we're not in the right position to make the call, we're that much further, you know, behind. So the object of all these mechanic situations or discussions or you know, recommendations are because they're going to give us the best chance when that play does happen that is 1 or 2 yards in front of us, or that ball carrier dives for the goal line pylon, and maybe he fumbles the ball becomes loose before it hits the pylon, or you know, maybe there's a, you know, a hold that happens at the 1 yard line, but you feel the runner coming about the 3 yard line, and by being deep and being as wide as we can and being stationary, we're going to increase our chances of being successful on ruling whether that was a hold or whether that ball carrier was out of bounds at the 1/2 yard line, or if the ball came out at the 1/2 yard line and hit the pylon or went through the end zone or went out of bounds at the 1 yard line. So the width, the depth is always your friend. So the wider you can get, you know, at any spot on the field, I would say let's get wide. We'll talk about punt plays a little bit later, but you know, whenever we start at the goal line, we want to get to the media line, the limit line, stay stationary, let the play develop. We don't have to move. If it's happening where we're not starting at the goal line, then we want to stay at the edge of the white.
And you know, I'll ask George this question. You know, I know it says from the 25 yard line and A and B at the goal line, but you know, again, these are good suggestions, starting points. But what we don't want to do, George, right, is, you know, stand at the 2, stand at the 1 yard line. If we're getting to that situation, it's better off for us just to get to the goal line, right, and start there. All right.
I'll jump in for George on that. He might have a problem with his mute button, but yes, that's one of the. You got it now, George. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, watching my granddaughter. Hey, yeah, don't split hairs and be at the 2 or 3 yard line. You know, be at the goal line. Okay, if you think, oh my God, I'm going to be at the 4 yard line, get to the goal line. And like Frankie was saying, now if you're a young official, you know, you want to stay with your key. We're going to be wide. You're going to stay with your widest guy. People laugh because we watch one guy. But as you progress and get a little bit older, 2, 3, 4 year guy, most of the time, at all levels, they're really not pressing off the line. Press means the defensive back is right on the receiver. So if they're not pressing, you know, you're wide enough, your belt buckles where Frankie told you, you could cheat in and look at your tackle and see if your tackle blows out for running play, or you can cheat and see if he goes back for a pass play. Right off the bat, then you can get right to your key. You know it's going to be a pass play. And 99 out of 100 times, most pass plays at every level, you know, are 7 to 10 yards. You agree with that, Frank? So you're really not going to get beat. I mean, you're really not going to get beat. Like Frank says, don't take a step. Your first 2 steps should not be back. Read your tackle or read the wide receiver. If he's blocking and coming out, you know it's a running play. Now, when you get down inside the back pylon, like Frank says, I wouldn't stand right on the pylon either. I'd get to the edge of the white there if you're in the middle of the end zone. Brian, they're in the middle of the end zone, correct?
Yeah, so they're on the pylon, and we'll go through that next. So that's a good segue in from the 7 yard line in. Okay, and the initial position is on the pylon on the end line. But before we get here, George, there's one other thing I want for you to explain to them is since there is no back judge in 6-person mechanics, when that ball gets thrown and you're standing at the goal line and you feel that the end line is going to be threatened, how do you read that and then decide to move? Because I know what some of the people are already thinking. well, how am I going to officiate the sideline or end line when I'm that far off of the pylon? But in reality, you can officiate those lines just as good, whether you're on top of them or you have a lot of width.
You're better off not moving. I'll be honest with you. You're better. And
Well,
and a lot of times you want to jump
you don't
back
think
to
they
the-
have to move? You don't think they have to move to get to the get
Well,
a couple
it depends.
yards?
If that passes in the middle, if that passes on your sideline, okay, you may want to take 1 or 2 steps back, but you really want to be stationary when that receiver catches that ball. If your eyes are moving and they're bouncing, you don't know whether he hits the line or not. You're better off being stationary. And sometimes you're just like, oh my goodness, am I back far enough? Just stand still. Stand still, you'll make a better call. And like Frankie was said, if you're in position to make the call, chances are you're going to make the correct call. And if you're in position to make the call and it's a 50-50 call, the coach cannot complain if you're in position to make it. He can't complain. You're right there. I was right there, coach. I was in position to make the call.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that a little bit, our mechanic is definitely never start between what we say the 5-yard line and the goal line. So either start at the 5 if it's snapped outside the 25, or go to the goal line, even if it's snapped at the 26, based on, we got to be a little bit smarter too with the whole game of football. So, down recognition, where we're at in the game, is it 3rd and 25 and they're going for it, or is it, 3rd and 2? What's the formation that comes out to present ourselves to that? So those are all pre-snap routines that sort of have to go into our mind to help us say, okay, yeah, you know what? It's at the 26-yard line, 25 I'm supposed to go, but it's 3rd and 20. You know what? I'll probably just go to the goal line at that point and just say, I'm just going to be where I want to be. Like George said, whenever we can limit our movements, we're going to be much better off with getting a call correct. So, and then the final piggyback on that situation, like Brian, I think was alluding to, was the only time I would come off that goal line would be as if that ball was thrown into my deep corner, okay, with not having 7-man or 8-man mechanics that some of us are privileged to. If it's in that deep corner, I would probably come down the limit line. Don't come into the field of play, or don't come into into the field itself, not even getting into the field, but just take a couple steps laterally, maybe down that limit line, and try to get stationary, like George was saying, at the point of the catch, okay? You'll definitely be able to see whether his foot was out of bounds. You're definitely going to be able to see whether his foot was in bounds. That, if you look at a football field and look at that couple yards there, whether you're on the line or 3 steps off the line, 4 steps off the line, your depth doesn't change on plays like that, okay? It's going to, but by being wide, it's going to give you that much wider of an angle that you're going to be able to pick up on some of that. Maybe you're looking at the feet, you've got good feet, but out of the corner of your eye, you see that he bobbles it on the way to the ground and it moves. If you're standing up on this sideline, you could get cut off on that angle of the bobble. So again, the only time I would move on the goal line, but also being cognizant of your, the number of officials that are on the field here, if it's in that deep third of that end zone, okay? But I would never give up the goal line until I feel that ball crossing the goal line, okay? So if you guys can imagine a fade to the back corner, I'm gonna stay stationary, watch my players stay stationary, and once I feel that ball, that goal line is no longer a threat for anything, then I'll take a couple side shuffle steps down that sideline or end line extended, or media line extended, and just try and get still whenever the play develops at that point.
Agree with that, Frankie. Good point.
Okay, that's all great discussion, and I do believe I have some plays that hopefully we can illustrate exactly what you both are talking about there. So this is really good stuff because not being a deep person, I'm visualizing myself on the field, and your width off the pylon is actually what helps you be able to see that end line without having to move back towards that end line. Because if you're on top of the pylon, you're going to get almost straight line to be able to see that end line, because the player or players are going to be in your line of view to be able to see whether the feet are in or not.
Hey,
Correct.
George.
Brian.
Yeah, Frankie, what do you got?
George.
Yep.
It's Jerry. Hey, what about the backside official? Can he help at all? Your other deep guy, if he's on the pylon, well, we've always talked about him trying to get to that end line a little bit to help down the end line.
Well, he better, he's across the field, and if it's on your third of the field, Jerry, we always, there's no more, fish in your own pond type of thing.
Yeah.
If he has positive knowledge, he can certainly come over and help out. Now, at that point, I don't know that the field judge and the side judge with a 6-man look at each other, make eye contact before they go up. So it could be a difficult move on that, Jerry. If it's on one, his third of the field or the other third of the field, it'd be very difficult. I always said to myself, and even with a back judge, if it's my guy, I always tell myself, one-on-one, this is one-on-one. I act like I have no help, even though we do have help at a different level. So just, almost own the position and own the call. If you're in position, like Frank says, 2-3 steps stationary, just make the call. Now, if it's an obvious mistake across the field, Jerry, obviously somebody has to come in and change that call. If the old lady up in the top row sees it, we have to help out. But if it's on his third, I think the side judge or field judge almost has to own that position there.
Yeah, they're gonna leave it go. We've always talked in pregame that if something comes across, so outrageous and that might take a peek. If you're not 100% sure, if you're, we've always talked to take a peek at your other deep guy, just real quick before you do anything, and take a look at, like Brian said, your short wing's gonna be standing there on the sidelines anyway, so he's gonna give you other support.
Your short wing's gonna help you on the sideline play, believe me. But the end line is going to be yours. It's if it's on your side, it's going to with a 6-man mechanic. It's going to be your call, unfortunately. And if you're in position to make the call, you're going to probably make the correct call.
So Jerry, you bring up a great point in the fact of, backside officials. What are we doing? Oh, the play went to the other side. I think that's a great mechanic. And it's maybe the 1 in 1,000 time where you might see the ball move. You're going to maybe not make the decision on the toe being out of bounds in the white, but it might be the obvious that the ball's away from the deep wing on that side. And now you see the ball pop out or squirt out. So, I definitely would recommend that. Hey, you know what? Our whole goal is to get every play we can get right on the field. And without replay for you guys, you guys have more pressure than we do at our level, believe me. We have the safety net. But how would you come in then at that point if you had something different than what your deep wing's signaling? As a deep wing in a situation like that, I probably wouldn't come in signaling incomplete, but I would beeline my butt over there and explain to them what I saw from my side. And did you see that ball move on the ground or come out? It clearly came out. Have a conversation and then make the decision, as opposed to just we're coming very far away. Okay. And I'm not saying, like, I think Brian mentioned it. You know what? When we see something, we have a duty to our crew into the game, probably the game before our crew, but to come up and at least bring it to the conversation. So I wouldn't come in wiping it from 60 yards away, by no means, but I would get over there and say, to George, hey, George, did you see that ball move at the very end? I clearly saw this move, and then make a decision from there. Okay. But with that said, exactly. But with that said, these are one-off plays where we have to be 100%. We can't be coming in with, I thought it moved, or man, I want to show my crew that I can officiate this whole field today. No, these are plays, they call them crew savers. And it's so obvious, like George mentioned, the grandmother up in the stands saw this ball move or this ball pop out. We're so close to it in a way, we don't see everything, and we're going up with a touchdown. Well, that's a great point. I would say that is a great pregame topic, and hopefully by doing that, we're prepared on the field when that arises. And it might only be one time in your career, but it might be a time. It reminds me of a game I had real quick in the Big Ten. I was at Illinois.
Oh, the game dropper.
Yeah, here we go. So, I mean, we have replay, we have 8 men, we have everything, and I got a veteran guy deep wing on the other side. And I mean, the play goes to their sideline, and I could tell from my look on my sideline, this ball moved. And I was like, and he hesitated. So, I look and I see a hesitation. They look at each other. Now the line judge wants to go up with it. And then he does slowly. Then the field judge goes up with it. And I just ran over there and I said, "Hey, Terry," I said, "are you good with that?" And he looked at me like I had just, I don't know, he saw a ghost. Well, next thing you know, we get buzzed. And it does get flipped that it was not a touchdown. But I knew just from his body language that he was not good with that catch. And from my look, I wouldn't have put anything on it, but I would just tell you, man, I don't feel like I thought he was bobbling that ball. But I'm so far away, I'm not coming in and saying, "Hey, he bobbled it," by no means. But I mean, it was funny because it was sort of a situation that you brought up. It reminded me that, I just felt like, "Hey, you good with this?" And by then, I think they were going to get together and flip it to an incomplete pass. But then we got buzzed so quickly, we just left it where it was. But all right, George, no more game drops. Okay?
Yeah. Hey, Frank,
and-
talking
and-
about body language, your cousin had told me many, many years ago, you have a 50-50 call on that, and especially on a 6-man. Just go up confident. And don't hesitate. Go up confident. Nothing else, nothing's going to happen to you. You come confident incomplete, come confident touchdown. Everybody reads your body language. The coaches will read, "Oh, he wasn't even sure it was a touchdown. Look at him. Look at how slow he went up." Go up, look at the player, go up confident. You say, "Oh shit, it's a 50-50 call." It's the flip of a coin. Just look the part. Look. Tony Sterator told me, just look the part, George. Sometimes you're going to get it right. Most time you're going to get it right. You may get it wrong, but it looks good.
Yeah, exactly. And I would just say that comes with, years of working, experience. Go slow. You can never say you're going slow enough. Yeah. And I tell you what, you would feel like you're going slow on these plays. You look at them on film, and I send them to a mentor of mine. I send them to my cousin. I send them to, George. And you know what? If they're honestly critiquing me, which we all want honest critique, and I mean, that's how we're going to get better. The first thing is, "You went too fast." I'm like, "I went too fast? I swear I went slow. Look." And you know what? You look at it a different way. So go slow, digest the play, and bang it out on what you see. Sideline plays are tough plays. I mean, let's face it. What we do as deep wings is what everyone in the world sees. Okay. So yeah, there's jokes that go around. We have one guy, we do this, we do that, but I'll take the one guy, but I also get the opportunity to call pass interference when it's 55 yards from the field, from the line of scrimmage, and every eyeball is watching this play, and we have the opportunity to make the correct call. In the middle of the line, not everyone sees a hold. No one knows that. So, going back to sideline plays, put yourself in the best position. Look at your partner when you're boxed in with them. Go slow and make a decision. And when you're right, guess what? That doesn't mean you're that good. It's a lot of this is an educated guess based on a lot of experience, a lot of factors that go into it. Where are you positioned? And when you're wrong, you're not that bad either. So you know what? A lot of times they're 50-50 plays, but to George's point, sell it and move on.
Hey, Brian, not to get off base, but Frankie's talking about sideline plays. Frankie, most of the time when we were coming up, and maybe I'm different than you in this case. Sideline plays as deep field judge as side judge. The ball's coming toward us. The line of scrimmage guys going down the line. It used to be, and some guys may do it, Frank. I don't. I'll take the ball. You take the feet. You take the ball. I take the whole play. Okay. Years ago, I said my line. You have to take the feet. I'll take the ball. It is just own that play. Take it. Take the ball, the feet, look everything. Take the feet and the ball follow. Okay, the feet's most important, and the ball follow. Right? Frank, can you agree with that? coming up, that was a tough thing to do.
Yeah, you know what? I think a lot of times, again, going back to the old mechanics or things we were taught, sometimes
Yes.
habits, they're not necessarily bad habits. They're just habits that we created at that time because that's all we were presented with. It's harder to break, but no, first thing on a sideline catch is feet, balls. So feet, we got good feet, work your way to the ball. Okay.
Yep.
It doesn't matter if the ball's good, if the feet's bad.
Right.
But at the same time, sometimes you're not presented with everything. I agree with George 100%. You better go into that play looking for everything. But sometimes they turn, and the only portion you can give your short wing is feet. And you might not have seen the whole ball, and vice versa. So that's why we got to go really slow on those situations. We got to have good depth. We want to get as still as we can when that ball comes in there. And we want to be mechanically sound. I mean, that's why we're all on the call right now on a Wednesday night and putting time in right now to learn mechanics. And believe me, George and I and Brian can attest to, we're all learning from this. Believe me, when you start talking football in general, we're picking things up that is going to help us one of these days this fall on a Friday night, on a Saturday, that might trigger us and get this play right. And, that's the whole part of officiating, is that we want to go into every game and know that we're not going to be perfect, but we're going to work as hard as we can to be as perfect as we can on that game.
We pulled you off base, Brian. I'm sorry.
No, it's good because like you said, but you can't say I got feet and you got ball because of the way the person's positioned. Like Frank said, the ball may not be presented to me. It might be
Right.
looking through the back. So if you say that, there's no absolutes in this game. And that's why we have to understand that the manual, that the way it's written, is a guideline for us to have a starting point. But as the play develops, we have to be athletic or agile or whatever you want to call it, play football, to be able to officiate the play. So this is all the good talk that hopefully you are getting a benefit out of it, because no two plays are the same. No two plays in the back corner of the end zone are the same because the players are twisted in a different way. So you have to put yourself in the best position to be able to do that. And a lot of it is done through experience, working the underclassmen games, scrimmages, and seeing these plays and kind of piecing together how you're going to handle them. So we'll go through from the 7-yard line in. The deep wings go to the pylons on the hashes in the back, and just as similar, you're going to get the same sort of width. Okay, you're not going to be on the end line, you're going to be back. Okay, and just like Frank and George mentioned before, if it goes toward the corner of the end zone, this is where you have a little bit of help here, because you have a short wing who's on the goal line, who should spin to help you with the sideline. So you're already halfway to the corner. You shouldn't have to move, if maybe at most a step. Okay, so you can just pivot in this situation to be able to officiate the play. Our key switch inside the 7. So we no longer have the widest person. We take the second person in, and we let the line of scrimmage official take the widest player in this. Okay, and then anytime we have lines involved, whether it's close to the back corner of the end zone, before you decide to go up with a touchdown, make eye contact with your other official, because the last thing we want is one going up and one coming in waving it off. Okay, that doesn't mean at the end of the day we don't get to the correct result. It just does not look sharp if we're not on the same page. It's like coming in with a block charge. So make that eye contact, take that extra second and that deep breath to look at that person, because like Frank said, read their body language. If they don't know, then make the call for them. And also there's nothing wrong with coming together and discussing it too. So there's good situations there. We're going to skip a little bit forward to the punt, because I want to get to the plays, because I want to hear Frank and George explain through these plays, because I think a lot of this will be even more beneficial when we visualize everything on the field with people going. So on scrimmage kicks, on punts, our initial positioning should be 5 to 10 yards behind the punt returner. I have to adjust that right here. Watching a lot of film, I have to tell you this. Stay still until the kick returner catches the ball. Okay. Too many times while the ball's in the air, we're moving forward. Stay still. I talked I used this term yesterday with the line of scrimmage officials on spots on kickoffs. The spot is not super important. It's a zip code spot. If you're off by a yard, yard and a half, 2 yards, it's not the end of the day. And the most of the times, and I'll let Frank and George talk to this, the deep wing on the other side of the field is actually the one who gets the best spot, if it's running down our sideline. So use cross-field mechanics in a situation like that to help get a better spot. This next part here is our change in our mechanics. Okay, last year, previous years, when the ball was kicked, the field judge, we would either split the field in half or split the field in 2/3, 1/3. And if the ball was kicked to our third, we took the kick returner. So what was happening when we were doing that is we were relinquishing our eyes off of our flyer to officiate the kick returner. And what's happening is that flyer is the most important block to spring that kick returner, and nobody is watching them. So we're going to do a little bit of a change in mechanics this year. So if the ball is punted away from you, you are responsible for the catch, the fair catch signal, and the possession of the ball by the kick returner. While that official on that side of the field where the ball was kicked is going to stay with his or her flyer to make sure there's no block in the back or a blindside block. Are there any questions on that? We'll show some plays regarding that, but this is a little bit of a switch from in the years past.
Hey, Brian.
Yes.
That's all well and good, which is fine. But if the off-field, let's say it's the off-field field judge, and he has the catch, correct?
Yeah. So if it goes towards the side judge's side of the field, the field judge would have the catch.
But he's still responsible for his guy coming down the field for a throw down or a hold, correct?
You're correct. So
the line of scrimmage guy's going to help with that? I mean, I don't know. I'm asking.
So we're six person mechanics.
Right.
So we don't have that 7 in the middle of the field. So this is where it makes it, we don't have that back judge
difficult
here to help us here. It is. It's a very difficult. This is where. So one of the two has to relinquish it. So that with the off one relinquishing it, they can still officiate that catch, George, and maybe get back to their flyer in time for something to happen there. But like you said, the line of scrimmage officials should be transitioning down the field at that time.
That's what I'm asking, because once the kick's away, Brian, the line of scrimmage guys is almost free of foul there, right? He can look downfield for the throwdowns.
Right. So we have them making sure the ball crosses the line of scrimmage, and then jogging down 10 yards and stopping and just keeping our field of vision very wide for stuff like you're mentioning there.
Okay, good.
And then the last one is don't move until the ball is clearly possessed and the returner is moving upfield. Again, just be patient in this. And is when, and we'll show some plays later on.
Real quick, Brian, I'll just jump in on 2 things from reading that slide that would strike me. Number one, the direction of the kick is very, very important, because we got to know if I'm going to be coming off my flyer and I have the responsibility of this catch. So when you have your depth and you're there and the punt goes, take a quick glance and see the angle of where this ball is going. Okay. So you want to know the flight direction of the ball, and by then you can also see if he boomed this or if it's a shank or if it's, what type of a punt it is. I always look at the flight of the ball after it's kicked. And then also too, a pre-snap routine could be if they're kicking on the right side, that right hash, and punting from the right hash, and you're standing on the right hash, okay? That punt is probably going to come to the short side of the field 9 times out of 10, if not 10 out of 10. Okay, now I get it. They're high school punters. They don't really have control sometimes over their kicks. So as they do it at different levels, but believe it or not, that punt is going to be designed to go down that hash. They do not want to have to cover that whole wide side of the field and give them that open field. So just know that if you're standing on the hash that punt is starting from, if it's snapping from your hash, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to have the punt returner. You're going to probably have your key the whole way. Conversely, if you're on the wide side of the field, you got a better vision, you got better depth. You better be thinking, I'm probably going to see this punt go. And if it's going straight down the field, it started at the right hash, I'm going to end up getting over to my punt returner. And still, with that said, I think that's a very good mechanic, because now you have that whole field of vision in your field of vision with depth. Okay. You should be able from 25, 30, 40 yards away to get a feel for this punt coming down, and then also getting a feel for this flyer that's coming into your peripheral too, whether he gets, we're not looking for minor holds. I mean, we're looking for takedowns or something that's going to be major and effective in all fouls. So you should be able to officiate both of those things because of your peripheral and your depth and standing still, and knowing too that, hey, if I got action on this punt returner, I might have to just focus. We gotta prioritize like things in plays, like Brian said. These are all well and good when we're talking on a computer or sitting in a pregame. But when the game is on the line taking real live action, there might be a play where you got no one, your flyer might have beat him, and there's no threat of foul. At that point, I'm going to go right now. If I'm wide side, I'm going to watch 100% on this catch. There might be a time where no one even got down there and this catch is so clean, there's going to be no threat of foul there. The only thing we really have to be worried about is, did he possess it or did he muff it? Okay. So those are all things you got to play through in your pregame mental prep. Maybe it's yourself, maybe it's talking with your deep wing. Like George said, having a conversation in pregame about, hey, when we're on the wide side of the field, if I'm a side judge and my head linesman is on the wide side with me, he better know that I'm going off of my flyer to get this punt returner covered. So that short wing on that wide side probably needs to know that he might need to give you extra help, as opposed to the field judge's side, where that punt's probably coming down and you're going to stay with your flyer the whole time. Does that make sense?
That's all great stuff, Frank. It is. It's that extra higher level officiating that, for some of the newer officials, it's going to sound a little bit overwhelming, but I'm telling you, as you start to piece all of this together, you'll slowly start to build all this as you're watching the play. Oh, that's what they were talking about there. So if you're newer, don't try to swallow this all in one fell swoop. Okay, so start with your basics and progress as you go along to do this.
Brian, I'll just touch base on that real quick too. All of us have been in all of our positions before, guys. We've all been in that spot where you guys are sitting. You're 1, 2, 3 years into high school football right now. We've all been there. That's the beauty of what we do in officiating. I see names on here that, I worked, Division 2 and 3 with years ago, and we've all been in those situations too. So believe me, it was overwhelming for me in 1996 when I sat in my first meeting, and I was like, this is crazy. But believe me, it builds and builds and builds, and just keep taking it in, and we're all here to just try and get better, all of us. So don't get overwhelmed with it.
All right, field goals and tries. It's really easy. You're under your respective uprights. We don't have to spend much time on that. Free kicks. So your initial position is the field judge is on the receiver's restraining line, side judge is on the kicking team restraining line, and our first play will show us exactly how we want to stand on those restraining lines, because both officials do really good job with the way they stand. So our keys are the second, third, and fourth member of the kicking team. And we're going to allow the kicking team to go past us completely before we even decide to jog upfield a little bit. Again, we don't want to have the kick to go away. We see it deep and we start to move upfield there. And then we stay on the sideline the entire time. No, the only person that is in the middle of the field during a free kick is the umpire, who is lined up behind the kicker. And then an onside kick, we're both on the kicking team's restraining line. And, I use this term, treat as a plane of glass. Okay. If we have a free kick and we're talking about offside and the ball goes deep, okay, we want a foot down beyond the kicker's restraining line prior to the ball being kicked for it to be a foul. Now, if it's an onside kick, it's a plane of glass. If their head is across the 40-yard line before the ball is kicked, it's a foul. And if they're kicking an onside kick, because of that little bit gives us that advantage whenever we're kicking an onside kick. Now, when kicks are away for us for onside kicks, we're looking for early blocking. Frank and George, you want to talk about the rule? The rule is similar to what we're used to with the kicking team is not allowed to block prior to them legally being able to recover the ball. So can you talk a little bit about what it means for passive and active blocking in those situations?
George, you want to jump in, or you want me to grab it?
Go ahead, Frankie, but I'll join in. Go ahead.
Yeah. So
explain passive right now. I mean, I would say most passive is a guy that's just standing there watching a ball. It very rarely happens. Active is a guy that's actively ready to block or in a position to block. You agree with that, Frank?
Yeah.
When you say that, you mean, so we're talking about the kick returning team, right?
I'm talking about the returning team,
Right.
Passive is if it's, I'm going to go on a punt other than a free kick and explain it a little bit better. Passive is the guy that the ball is rolling on the ground and a defender or a kicking team maybe pushes him into the ball. We know that's passive. It wasn't his fault. He didn't put, but active is a guy that's actively participating in the play. And 99.9% of the time on free kicks, on onside kick, they're going to be active. Nobody's going to stand around passive and get their head clean, their clock clean.
Right. It's like and Frank maybe be able to expand on this. It's almost like a block charge situation.
Yeah.
If you're a kick returner and you come up and you take a charge, you're stationary, you're passive. If you're at all coming forward, you're active, and that contact with the kicking team member, then we don't have a foul for the block situation, correct?
Correct. So, yeah, I mean, it's just one of those plays that don't happen that often. I mean, onside kicks, believe me, we could probably count them on our, hands and toes on how many times we've all been involved in them. And with that said, we got to know the rules. I mean, you just have to know the rules. There's certain times you got to know philosophies, certain times you got to know mechanics. Onside kicks is one of the situations where you have to know the rules inside and out. And basically, if you know the rules inside and out, that kicking receiving team or the receiving team is going to normally come up and initiate that contact. I mean, the kickers are coming down here trying to get to the ball. And most of the time, the receiving team there's a couple guys that are going to come up and take the interference out so that the hands team behind them can get a clean grip of it. Okay.
So that's active, Frankie, right? That'll be active.
That would be all active stuff. What George is probably referring to is a guy going up and trying to trying to
remember
ball and get blown up. It's hard to, I agree with George. Most of the time we see active passive is going to be in a scrimmage kick game where it's a punt play and some guy's going to be a knucklehead and try and get in there and stand around the ball. He's the receiving team player and a kicker is going to try and push him into the ball and then fall on it and act like, oh, I just got the first touch and we got the ball. Those are going to be passive situations, but I will tell you that those guys shouldn't even be around that play. Number one. Number two, you're going to know when a passive and an active situation do have. It is a hard thing to explain. Maybe we can see some of it on video here, Brian, and work our way through some of that. So obviously this is going to be a surprise on kick.
Yeah, so this is a surprise onside kick, and I'm always taught that treat every special teams play, whether it be a kick, free kick, or a scrimmage kick, that it's going to be a fake, or in this case, an onside kick. So I can never be surprised that this could happen. So can we talk? So it looks like our field judge and side judge are in, we want, so at the top of the screen is the side judge. We want in this case, we'd want our left leg on the 40, correct, at the top of the screen. Because we want to be upfield as much as possible to judge on offside, correct?
I'd agree with
you
that.
guys handle that.
I would agree with that. And Brian, every kick play, and Frankie probably does the same thing. We have a beanbag in our hand every kick play, right, Frank?
Yes.
Because you never know. You can just slide it back in your pocket. Nobody sees it. Nobody cares.
I typically, if I'm at the bottom of the screen here, I'm going to have it in my right hand, because I know it's just going to tell me another little mental game reminder that the only time I'm dropping this beanbag is if anyone on my right side touches that ball first. Okay.
Correct.
Again, going back to the rules knowledge, you know that they can't touch the ball until it goes 10 yards. Okay. They can't block until the ball was legally touched. That means if a team B player comes into that 10-yard span and muffs the ball, now all bets are off. Or if that ball goes 10 yards, now team A can block. Okay. Team B can always come up and block at any point, whether the ball goes 10 yards or not. So with that said, just certain things, I'm fine. I typically do split the line myself, but I'm never on the kicker's restraining line. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always mechanically on the receiver's restraining line, which is a less of an important line for offside. So I probably do like that mechanic where you are going to be on your left foot on the 40 at the top of the screen, gives you a little bit of an angle coming down to see that whole line, because you have that whole line yourself. You don't have any help on this bottom half. We're in a different, 7-man mechanic. You would have help, So
Hey,
I'm
Frank,
with that mechanic there.
Frank, hold up a minute. Can everybody see Brian's screen?
Yes.
Yes. Tell us we can see Brian's screen. Go ahead.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Frank, you can see it now?
Yes, I can see it.
No, Frank Torber.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I can't see it. I'm about to sign off and sign back on.
Frank's
probably.
tried changing your view because you may be in the view where you only seeing the speaker.
Billy, mute everybody again. Billy Schonheimer, mute everybody again.
All right, so I'm going to run this play, and we'll look at the onside kick. And overall, this crew handled this play really well. I mean, for it to happen on the first play of the game, but as we look at it, we're picking the pepper here, but this is what I'm talking about with a pane of glass right here. You could potentially, and we have to be able to understand and rule on a situation where does this person here, does their head break the plane? I don't know how you all do that. That's extremely difficult, but that's why we should be aware that it could happen at any point of the time, any point during the course of the game. So onside kick here. Goes down the middle of the field, recovery. And the deep wing comes in, does a good job. The only thing I would suggest, and Frank and George to signal who has the ball.
Yeah, you don't have to wait for the referee to come up and signal who has the ball. This is your time to shine. Let everybody in the stands know who has the ball. Screw the referee. Let them stand back there.
Just two things on that mechanic wise. I would probably recommend, and I don't know, Brian, it's your call on this. I would say that these two guys should be at the edge of the white. They're a little tight onto the field. You know,
Back
again,
here.
going back to depth is our friend. Get as
Mhm.
deep as you can. You're keeping everyone behind you. Okay. They're going to feel your presence there. And as you shuffle down that field, you know, they're not going to be in your way most of the time. But it's also more importantly, if that ball gets coming down here to the bottom of the screen and it's going to be bouncing around at the 49 and potentially going out of bounds, I mean, you could have you're going to be backing up regardless because you want to get back because you want to save your, you know, body from getting injured. So why not just be back already? You know, so I would always start all kick plays at the edge of the white like we do on all scrimmage kicks. The other thing is on all kick plays, just from a clock standpoint, being a deep wing, always check off on the clock, whether it's kick deep and it's a touchback, make sure no seconds ran off, whether it is kick deep and it's a run back and know what, hey, we started at 13:20. In this case, we started at 10 minutes or 12 minutes. And now we better not be at 12 minutes if he ran it back. And again, in this situation, especially on all onside kicks and on all obvious onside kicks, we're not good enough to wind the clock and kill the clock and decide who blocked first and who touched it first and who recovered it. But at the end of the play, we can look at our card and say, hey, we were at 101 on the game clock and now we're at 101. That ball was touched legally. We got to adjust it down to 59. Okay, those are just little tidbits that always mechanically on scrimmage kicks, I mean, mainly on free kicks and especially onside kicks, check off on.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, that's really the reason you write the time and score on your card for situations like the onside kick. I mean, it doesn't really matter other than, and I talked yesterday to the line of scrimmage officials that on obvious onside situations when they're up on the ours restraining line to help out with this too. So okay, so regular kickoff. We can run this. And you can see the official at the top. We don't want to be coming onto the field like that. We want to be stationary, stay back of the white. And you know, just keep our overall depth. We'll get to a few other. Let's move off kickoffs and let's just start with our initial mechanics. So here we're snapping the ball, I think, at the 18-yard line. Do you guys want to talk about the mechanics at the deep wing at the top of the screen a little bit?
Yeah,
on the goal line.
He's not bad. I mean, I normally go back a little bit further. I kick that G out of the way. Nobody likes it. I throw that out of the way and I get back to, that's called that line there. And he's probably there at the limit line, but I would even go wider than that, Frankie, would you?
Yes, I'd probably take one step because that G is on the limit line. And
Yeah.
that's a pre-game routine that I would do is just go back and walk the field and, you know, just take that 1 or 2 steps, 1 or 2 more feet off the field. Keep it on the goal line because the announcers need to know it and everyone wants to see it. So just go ahead and move it a little bit, give you a couple more steps over there. But overall, that's pretty good positioning.
Yeah, pretty good position there, right? Just move it back.
Yeah.
Just move it back a tad. I kick it back a little bit, take an extra couple inches. I need it.
He's at an angle. It's a good angle looking in.
Like you talked about, belt buckle towards the quarterback.
Yeah.
Right there, stationary, doesn't move, comes in and you know, helps with the ball. And
Looks very good there. It looked very good.
Right. So here we have a pass situation. And you talked earlier about, you know, reading your key, right? So you're reading your key right here, right? Frank and George, your widest person. So you're patient off the snap, but now you know he's running a fly pattern, right? So and the cushion that this person has and looks like he's stopped is just it's actually really good cushion. Is it too much
cushion.
or is it?
Yeah, tremendous cushion.
No, I think it's that. I mean,
We're stationary. We come up in a nice, easy, incomplete, calm pass. It looks really good.
go back to that play real quick, Brian.
Sure, sure.
Okay, so let's just talk about, like George mentioned earlier, pre-snap routine. Okay, so part of our pre-snap is we're counting the defense, obviously. Then we come out in this formation. Okay, so we got to know down and distance. We're second down and looks like 10.
And
Okay, we don't have any press coverage. So the defender is when the terminology of press is he within 1 yard of the receiver? So that's press coverage for us, meaning that if he was lined up at the line of scrimmage and that receiver was on the line of scrimmage, which we know he was supposed to be on the line of scrimmage, that's threat of foul. But since he's not in press, so that gives us a little bit of a breather as a deep wing that now we can, at the snap, we don't have to look at our wide receiver at the snap because there's nothing he can do other than trip. I mean, there's nothing, no hands to the face, no grab, defensive hold, nothing that's going to restrict him because he's 7-8 yards from him. So read the tackle in this situation, okay? Or look inside of the next threat, which is the wing back, but he's not pressed because he's puts himself off the line. So there's a good 3 yards right there before anything's going to happen. But my eyes would be right there where Brian just circled or Tim circled, and it would be okay. So we have trips on this side, so that would be at tight end. That's where my eyes are going to be right there. Okay, to see if two things. Number one, he gets a blow to the head, which rarely ever happens, or if he would get held or taken down coming off that line that you might be able to peek at and get help out with. And then let's let the play develop.
That happens, and that's more for an established official, right, Frank? If you're a 1 year, second year guy, you're almost better off sticking with your key, right? I mean,
yeah. And again, guys,
it comes with experience.
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm just giving you where we're talking and where I'm being taught and where we're teaching this stuff at. So without a doubt, I mean, we can't not answer the wire key, and that gap, believe it or not, is gonna, and you're gonna watch it here as this play goes. That gap's gonna get closed a little very quickly. Okay, but with that said, it's just we don't want to officiate error, and and there's no reason for you guys to start out, whether you're young or whether you're experienced, to be officiating error. This game's too quick. These athletes are too good right now. And it's what we need to do to better this, what we do in officiating. So, we want to read the play. You can tell it's a pass play very quickly. And this is what I would call a dig route from the wide receiver. He's going deep. You could tell that right away. And perfect position by the deep wing on this play. I mean, he's doing everything we're being taught today of, hey, don't be moving while the mesh point's happening. Get as stationary as you can and make a rolling. And I mean, solid mechanics here.
It looks real good.
So here we'd be starting at the goal line. No, I'm sorry, we're at the 30, 35.
We're at the 35. So this is where we need to, like you were talking earlier, read the play and get ourselves to the goal line and stop, right?
Okay. And
quickly,
when you go from this spot to the goal line, go at an angle and get yourself not straight down that white. Try and get yourself, work your way at an angle so that you end up at the goal line, but you're at that limit line.
Yep.
So like this. So like that. Like
just a little mechanic that will help you with your depth.
I mean, and it's difficult because you sit there and you get locked in on the receiver. Like Frank, you talked about press coverage. You'd probably consider that press coverage.
This is press. This is what we would call press. So my eyes are on that widest receiver right now. And I would tell myself pre-snap, if I got 88 and 25, I would repeat those numbers to myself on a pre-snap. Believe it or not, guys, we've all lost numbers after we throw fouls. But if we get in a disciplined habit of mentally saying 88 and 25, you're going to come up with the number if we have a foul on the defender or a pass interference on the offensive guy. So little pre-snap routine, 88, 25, 88, 25, press coverage. That's where my eyes are.
This one here, Brian, before you started, we want to be a little deeper off the goal line, correct? What we talked about, right? We want to be back almost to the
Yes.
G, right?
Well, you want to kick that G back and be back where that yellow
Yeah, we
is.
want to be where the G is, where the G is right now. I mean, here, you know, not, and like Frankie said, depth is your helper, but also if they run a swing pass or something, you get your legs taken out here if they're diving for the goal with the block.
Yeah.
You could get
Yes.
hurt. You could get hurt right there.
Yes, and so I want to talk a little bit about right here, the ball snapped at the 8, but I want to talk about, let's just say the ball snapped at the 11, at the 7. I'm sorry, let's say the ball snapped at the 8. Let's leave it at the 8, and we have a line to gain at the 1.5 yard line. And you know, our mechanics manual says, you know, short wings take spots till 2. But and this is something I explain, and it's almost a little bit kind of crew dependent. But I explained to the short wings, you take the spots on the field 99% of the time. I tell my short wing, and if I have I'm deep wing, if I have a line to gain that it's the 1 in the class, I will take it to the 1. I'll take the first down, you take the touchdown. And since you're deep already, you don't need to come up and do that. How do you guys handle that with your short wing?
Well, that's a crew preference. I mean, whatever. I mean, I always tell my line of scrimmage guy, listen, I'm not coming off the goal line. You know, you take the line to gain all day long. You're much prettier than I am.
Because you forget to stop the clock.
And it's really a crew preference. Some guys will say, well, no, the manual says this way, do it that way. And that's fine. I'll do whatever they want to do. But it's easier for us to stay on the goal line and for him to take the line to gain if it's the 1.5 or the 1 yard line. It's just simpler. I mean, you don't want to be running into each other, which it looks ridiculous also. He's coming down, I'm coming up. I mean, it looks bad.
Right. And so the other thing, and I think Frank or George alluded to it, if we have a sweep down to this side where the sideline could be threatened and the runner dives for the pylon, deep wing, before you go up for a touchdown, look back at your short wing to make sure they are clear that there was no feet on the sideline, right? You guys look back at your short wings on those?
Yes.
Yeah, we look back and I tell my short wing, I look back and I tell him, be on that whistle. I want to hear a whistle. Brian, you're a short wing, right? You blow, I mean,
right.
You're stopping the clock, obviously, and blowing a whistle. Because if he hits the sideline, you're stopping the clock, first of all.
Right.
And sometimes we may not see that because we're so locked in, but I want to hear a whistle.
So
yeah. And then what it will do too is it will help you go slow and digest that play.
Right.
And
here's a situation where we don't stay on the goal line. So we slide because we see that ball in the air and we lose that goal line, and then it becomes really threatened. So let's just, again, Frank and George have talked a lot about it. Keep your feet in cement on that goal line. And the only time you want to move back to that end line is if that ball gets thrown past us, and at the most we're taking 1 or 2 steps to get back there. So here's a situation. Again, it's another one of your dig routes, Frank, on the top of the screen. And the deep wing does a good job stopping right at the goal line, right? Signaling incomplete, looking back through. It's really good mechanics right there. I think I have one where we get thrown to the back of the end zone. So here it is. So talk about this situation here where because we don't have help on the end line.
Yeah. I think this is very well done in the fact that right now, like if you go back and pause it right before the ball breaks the goal line, like now he knows it's broken, it's going deep, and he leaves it, and he's keeping a cushion, keeping an angle, and he's gotta be able to get back there on this type of play without help on the end line and do what he just did. And I liked his tempo was very, very good. He didn't go up with it immediately. On these plays, when they're going to the ground, just tell yourself, show you the ball. And it's exactly what he did. He showed you the ball. Yeah. I mean, could that ball have come loose in between that roll on the ground that no one would have been able to see but a TV angle? Of course. But it didn't present itself to him. Probably didn't present itself to the other wing. And you know what? You make a ruling. And I mean, the tempo of this ruling and mechanic, I think is what we all strive for.
And George alluded to earlier, the confidence that this call was made.
Mhm.
It wasn't unsure. It was nice, calm. I saw the catch. The player goes to the ground. You see the eyes. Then you just see the nice, calm touchdown signal. So this was a really well officiated play. So we have good depth by the official at the top of the screen. And so now we have a sweep to the bottom of the screen. And talk, mechanics, the field judge already started deep because you can't see them, that person right here.
I think he looks
And
great.
Right. And, you're going, maybe he took a step back, maybe he didn't have to, but by putting himself in that situation here, he made it much easier for him to officiate this play. And then he looks back right here, like we talked earlier, looks back at the short wing to gain confirmation that whether or not the runner stepped out or not, and then goes up with a nice, strong touchdown signal. So that right there.
Really
is
nice done, Brian. That's textbook right there.
Textbook
And something
mechanics right
George
there.
mentioned, if he's up at that goal line, he's asked over 10 cups now. Think
Yes.
about it. Look at what happens if he's right on that goal line and where all those people are going. He may not have legs left. Think about this.
Well, you're right. And what's going to happen is you're going to be backing out and you're going to be in survival mode and you're not going to be officiating. You're just going to be worrying about, like you said, your knees getting broken or your legs getting broken. So those are the reasons why George and Frank are telling you to get that depth, because you can just stay still the entire time. Let's get to a few punts here and then we can let everyone go. But right here, we're punting. They're on the plus side of the field. They're kicking from the 35. So we should be on the goal line for our initial position. So we have a punt here. And look, we're backing up to the goal line. And let's forget about this back judge, because this is a 7-man game. But we want to be on the goal line, because we're going to be the ones who are going to rule on whether the ball crossed the plane of the goal line or not, correct? Excuse me.
Yeah, we want to never back up to the goal line. We want to be stationary at the goal line, right, Frank?
Yes.
And I talked a little bit earlier about not coming up too quickly. The ball's in the air. So this is a situation where the side judge at the top of the screen is going to take the catch, and the field judge at the bottom of the screen is going to be continuing to officiating this matchup, because we have chase mode right here, right in front of the kick returner. Nothing happens. Now we start to play football here. But where we want to be is, if we look at this field judge right here, we're in front of the kick returner. We don't want to be in front of the kick returner. If that kick returner backs up, and George and Frank, correct me if I'm wrong, we should still continue to keep that cushion of about 5 yards as they back up to catch the ball.
Yes.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Go
that's
ahead.
why it's really important to find the depth of the ball off the punter's foot. If you can get a feel for whether he boomed one or not, that's gonna help you with keeping your positioning where you want it to be.
Right. And this is another instance where we start moving upfield and then the ball's going back towards the goal line, and we're going backwards. And there's a lot of things that we could potentially have to rule on. And one of them could be momentum. Does the momentum of the runner take him into the goal line? Does the ball cross the goal line? Do we have a muff? Is there a touching? If you're back here, you see it all without having to move. I'm sorry, I cut you off, George, but go ahead.
No. I'm saying there's no reason for us to be with the returner within 5 yards of his return. Once he possesses the ball, you just check the blocking and saunter up. I mean, you could almost, unless he's running it back, I just jog at very best. And like you said, Brian, that is a zip code spot. It doesn't matter if you're off by a couple yards. Nobody's going to complain. The coach he's glad he got the kick return down to the 35-yard line. They don't care about a couple yards. They really don't. Just take your time after the kick. Take your time coming up, please.
And we alluded to this on Sunday, but we have an early contact playing through the back, and we talked about, and for those who weren't on Sunday, watch the mechanics of the field judge here. Pick up the flag, move it to the correct spot, come in, give your preliminary, and point. It's just really good fundamental mechanics for penalty efficiency. But I mean, we didn't really go over that much here, but that also helps with what's going on with the crew. But we're at about an hour and 20 minutes.
Yep, we're good.
I don't want to keep pounding the same points. I'm going to open the forum to questions for Frank and George. What don't you understand? What makes you nervous about what we've just talked about, or any clarifications that you may need as far as terminology or anything? So now's the time to ask the questions.
Hey, Brian, before you get into that question, I'd like to ask Frankie and George to talk about dead ball officiating after the play ends from the field judge and side judge positions.
I was hoping somebody brought that up. I see most younger officials, when the play ends, whether it be in their side zone, a running play, a pass play, they're running to the ball boy to get a ball. I can't remember a snap that started without a ball. I think the last thing we should look for is a ball. And I know these ball boys are excited and they're running and they're coach's kid and they're giving you the ball. But the ball is the last thing we worry about until everybody is free of foul. Frank, are you correct with that?
Correct.
Yeah, just,
So
I mean, go from player to player.
It depends, we got a ball carrier out of bounds on our sideline into the opposing team's bench area, or we have defenders into the offensive team area. We got to get up there and get those players out, escort them out. So that's a little quicker of a dead ball situation. Another situation is a deep wing we could have would be our wide out and our cornerback maybe now want to, just jive after each other after the play. Bang, 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 get in there, 22, no, not tonight, develop a little bit of a rapport with these players, because, that's what's going to help us in the long run. I've had some defensive backs that have just been nasty. You want to take a shot but you know what? If we can talk to them and communicate with them and let them know that, hey, you know what? I played this game. I know you're fired up. I hear you, but we got to stop on the whistle, my man. Let's go. We want to do everything we can do to avoid a flag that doesn't need to be thrown. Okay. And we want to help these kids, walk them off. They're ramped up. They're excited. They're playing Friday Night Lights. I mean, they're excited for this game. And boom, you know what? We got to let them know who's the authority and that we're here not to just, bang them out with the 15-yard penalty, but we're going to communicate with you and work you through this. So those are two situations of deep wings that come to me on dead ball officiating. But again, you're, as the play goes to the opposite side of you, you're dead balling backside. As the play comes to you, happens, it lands in the, tackled in the field of play at the nine-yard and in to the sideline, you're dead ball officiating. But I would agree with George, don't go grab that ball, because the moment you're looking for a ball, somebody's going to, take a cheap shot at somebody and no one's going to know it. And there's nothing better than when we watch film or somebody looks at a game of ours and we pick up a dead ball foul that was truly just not a good act of football. And we were disciplined and we watched it and we had it. And we didn't say, did you guys see this play? No one saw it. Well, why didn't we see it? Well, we were too busy not dead balling and officiating. So very important aspect of the game.
There was a question: who drops the beanbag after a punt is possessed on a punt? Excuse me. Whoever's responsible for the kick returner. So that's the person who should drop the beanbag.
Brian,
Yes.
This is Matt. Yeah, I had a quick question. If we have a punt from like the 42 or the 40 coming in, do we want to lose that width and be on the pylon so we can rule about whether we have a spot at the 1 or 2 or we have a touchback, or are we just going to have to eye that from back from the media line?
No, we don't. On a punt play, we're not at the media. We're not at that meter line. We are.
Yeah.
I mean, years ago, I mean, this was old school. We would put our legs over the pylon.
I know what you're saying.
I stand back from the pylon a little bit, not even a yard, so I can roll on that. Frank, you agree with that?
Yeah. So, I mean, we do still stand at an angle, but we're only there unless the ball in flight is going to come towards us. Okay. Once that ball is no longer a threat to that pylon, I'm just going to pivot right up. And that's a very good point. I'm going to be right on the sideline at that point.
Yes.
Okay? Now, granted, if the ball hits at the 10-yard line and 5-4, I'm probably going to move back a little bit and get my depth if it's coming towards me. Okay, but that would be the only time I would move back. Most of the time, that pylon and that goal line for us are not being threatened. But if it is, if it's in the middle of the field or on the other side, I'm just going to stay right on the sideline. The only time I would move back maybe towards that limit line would be if it spikes at the 7 or 8 and comes at an angle that might be coming towards me, just to get a little bit better depth to see if there's any, not so much the pylon threatened, but more of a hold or something like that.
And never give up that goal line.
Yeah, that's most important is be disciplined to stay on that goal line, even if it spikes at the 10 and bounces back to the 14 or 15 upfield. You know what, like George said, that stuff is all going to work itself out. We're going to get the spot around the 14. It might be the 13. It might be the 15. You know what? It's not a big deal, but those one-offs, when that ball hits there, boom, and now somebody comes down and muffs it, and now it ricochets right for that pylon. And now we're like, oh, it's still a kick. It was a muff, and now we're not on the goal
Any other questions?
Hey, Brian, this is Nick. Hey, before we go, I just want to thank Frank and George. A lot of good stuff there. Again, I want to thank Brian for his time. I want to thank Tim for his time. I thank Billy Schottenheimer for his time. He's been on all the sessions. All the referees that attended all their sessions. Okay, bring it back to your crew and let's start using the mechanics. There was a question about the PIAA mechanics page. The page just sent by Billy Schottenheimer wasn't updated yet. That's correct. It wasn't updated yet. Brian and Dave Blair are in the process of updating that PIAA mechanics. It should be within before we start regular season, I think, right, Brian?
Yeah, and I'm going to make all these PowerPoints available to everyone. So that all you have to do, I'm going to have a Google Drive link that you're going to be able to go in along with, for the referees, Tim's announcement page, so that everyone can just, this is, for lack of a better term, the mechanics for dummies, right? It's our short bullet point lists of where we should be standing and where we should be looking. So they'll definitely be available for everyone.
Okay, there being no further questions, like Brian said, they'll be available on the YouTube channel across the state too. This will be going across the state too, correct, Brian?
Well, yeah. So Dave Blair's got okay from the state to have a statewide YouTube channel for football officiating, and if you've all been following around with me the past couple of years, I've sent out training tapes. I did one on the new rules this year. I did one on defensive line movements, and I'm going to do some on mechanics. So it won't only be on my page because we need to get it away from there, because if I make a bad call again, it gets littered with bad comments. But Dave's going to start putting me on the state page, so for everyone to see.
All right. So again, thank you, Frank. Thank you, George.
I have a question.
Oh, good. Kirk, good.
Yeah. Okay. On a kickoff team here, Cade's kicking off. Unsurprised onside kick to R. Cade forms a wedge against the R team before the ball travels 10 yards and hits R. What do we have?
K forms a wedge and hits.
hits
Well,
R
so
at
that-
the receiving
We don't
team.
have a
cannot
wedge
block. K cannot block until that
Right,
ball
but some
goes 10
schools do
yards.
that illegally. That's why I watch school does that illegally, doing that, taking the receiving team out of the play to get the onside kick.
Well, there, that's what we were talking earlier about the active and passive blocking. If the receiving team steps up into K, it's not a foul on K because R is coming up into the block. Okay, so we will not have a foul for K on that situation. Now, if and it's in like Frank and George were saying, it's really difficult for R to step up, get still inside that 10-yard zone and then get blown up. So it's a difficult call in those situations. It's if you feel that K blocked R before being able to touch the ball, it's definitely a foul on K.
Okay, thank you.
So any other questions? They're all good questions tonight. And I'll echo, thank you so much, Frank and George, for coming on, because I definitely would have done 1/10 of the job that you all did. So thank you very much.
I'm glad to be a part of it, guys. I appreciate the opportunity. And like I said, if I confused anyone, it was unintended. And if I've misspoke on anything, let Brian know or shoot me an email or a phone call, and I'd be happy to clarify or make sure we're all on the same page. Okay. Good luck this season. Have a
Good
great
luck.
game.
Good
Thank
luck. Stay healthy and have a great year, folks. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Good
everyone.
stuff, guys. Thank you.
Good job, guys. Thanks.